The metadata network.
The metadata network. Are we gonna see a cycle back to the idea of out of band collection, like and distribution of collection?
Let's tokenize it now. We're gonna have DAD networks, and it's data about data.
I love it.
DAD networks.
Go, and then you're gonna have to go ask Dad.
Welcome to the Cables to Clouds podcast. Cloud adoption is on the rise, and many network infrastructure professionals are being asked to adopt a hybrid approach. As individuals who have already started this journey, we would like to empower those professionals with the tools and the knowledge to bridge the gap.
Hello, and welcome to another installment of the Cables to Clouds Fortnightly news podcast. My name is Chris Miles at BGP Main on Twitter, and as always, I am joined by Tim McConaughey at Juan Golbez on Twitter, and Alex, who is at Bumps in the Wire on Twitter. So we've not a ton of news coming in this week, but we definitely have some very interesting stuff that we want to cover here. So you know what, I'm just gonna jump right into it. So we're gonna kick off here with a big announcement actually from Cisco about a new product launch that they have coming out called Cisco HyperShield. So this is more or less the first installment of the Isovalent acquisition coming into play here. One of the first eBPF enabled applications or products that we've seen come in from Cisco. Some really cool stuff in here. So it's basically a HyperShield is kind of this distributed security architecture where they have these potentially agents. So an agent could be running on a particular workload with the Tesseract security agent. So that it kind of uses the eBPF components in there to interact with the kernel to implement security policies and things like that. They also have I think there's a virtual container network enforcement point. They also talk about implementing in the future the Cisco HyperShield within server DPUs. So that could be interacting on particular server endpoints on DPUs, which is pretty cool. And then again, I guess this is kind of the catch-all. Whenever you can't do it on the actual workload, they're going to implement it at on the switch layer. Obviously, being Cisco, they have these smart switches, quote unquote, which will be running these Cisco HyperShield agents on the actual smart switches. So like I said, this is a pretty cool distributed security architecture. So basically, it sounds like you're building a policy using human readable policy and things like that, and distributing it to all your workloads that are running this Cisco HyperShield agent. One of the really cool things that I will say that I saw in here was this concept of a shadow data plane, which if you're familiar with kind of like a blue-green deployment, it kind of follows that same logic. So if you're doing any kind of major software upgrades or pushing new policy, traffic will start getting replicated to this what we call shadow data plane. So basically a secondary data plane. And while traffic's being sent through that secondary data plane, I assume the administrator is going to be able to basically vet that secondary data plane and make sure that the intended nature that was required is actually happening, and then that can be merged into the primary or main data plane. So that was the first thing that I saw that really stood out to me. There's a little bit more in here about segmentation and things like that, but curious to hear from you guys. How do you feel about this announcement?
Yeah. All, technical details aside, like you definitely should read through this. The thing that kind of struck me most about this is I think the acquisition closed on Monday and this was released on like Thursday. I don't think I've ever seen Cisco move so quickly to get a product like a new, like a company they bought, an acquisition integrated into a product so quickly. And they do say, I think it's not going to be they said it's not GA until August of this year, but that's still insane. Like I've never seen Cisco move so fast. So, like Chris said, there's a lot of really cool things here. I'm just excited that they're actually taking this really cool technology and doing something with it immediately. And it shows that they actually have plans for it. And, there were 3 blogs just in the announcement. Like, you never see that when a product is announced, right? Usually there's just like basically an infomercial of, this is what we're going to do with, we came up with this new name and it's going to do all this cool stuff, but there's actual technical details in here. So it's really cool. Like Chris said, there's a lot of really interesting features and like product details about this, but also at the same time, it gives me optimism and hope that they're actually going to do something really big with this acquisition. So that's what I'm excited for.
Yeah. I want to know who got to name it. I want to know, did they have like a poll internally for like, what should we name this new thing?
Tesseract and HyperShield, man.
Yeah, man. It's like Battlestar Galactica up in here, man. I love it. No, what's also is cool. Everything you said is awesome. I mean, the idea of a distributed security solution is not exactly new anymore, especially in the cloud. But as you mentioned, like they're going to have it on Cisco smart switches as an enforcement point, also, right? So it sounds like you're going to get a true defense in depth, like distributed defense in depth type of deployment, which is very cool. The whole shadow data plane of the blue-green testing model, where you keep the traffic moving, but at the same time you can vet the new path and then flip over and do that's awesome. This idea of an autonomous segmentation is definitely shows where they're planning to bring in the learning model, AI, however you want to call it, right? Where here's segmentation, and we can figure out translate business intent into segmentation over time in a phased approach. Anyone who has ever deployed ICE is very familiar with this idea that hey, let's get this out here and turn it on never. But so I'm curious to see how that actually happens, because everybody's always afraid to flip the switch at the end of the day. So I am curious to see how that goes. But no, this is a great announcement. I'm very excited about just what they're doing with it already. I'm excited to see what they plan to do with it. It's overdue. Distributed security is really the scalable security. I think we said it one of our episodes with Steve McNutt all the way back in the beginning that we used to have to centralize security because we were unable to manage it at scale. But if you can manage it at scale, distributed security is the most scalable, most efficient way to do it. So this is awesome.
Yeah.
Well, how long until AI intent-based networking is like a new buzzword, right? Or something something comes along that means that.
Zero trust. Don't forget the zero trust in there.
Give it like 4 years. We'll have a centralized Cisco HyperShield model, and then we'll start talking about how that's it's better to go centralized rather than distributed.
They come in cycles.
Right back. Yeah, right. But no, the one thing that obviously this is a cloud networking focused podcast, so I think this one initially it sounds like they're leaning heavy into the Kubernetes side of security enforcement, obviously with eBPF. That's pretty much bread and butter right there. One thing that really stands out to me at this is obviously this is very dependent on data collection from all these endpoints running these things, and we have to assume that the reliability of that data getting to where it's collected is probably going to be a new normal, right? If you're going to run AI against all this data about how, if you want to do anomaly detection and things like that, obviously we're getting much more data out of something like this than we probably ever were, especially when all of this is supposed to be, end-to-end encrypted, MTLS, et cetera, right? I would assume you're getting a bit of this. Maybe you're getting it before encryption happens, so maybe you're getting a little bit more robust data. I don't really know. I'm just making a guess. But the distribution of that data to get back to wherever this collection point is, I really wonder where that's going to come into play. But just something I'm thinking of top of mind. That's
a really good point, though, because I can't believe I'm forgetting what the product's called. But what's the licensing thing that Cisco uses? It's like a
smart licensing,
but it's like a server
or DNA
that reaches out to.
But
it's like, right, like that model's kind of already there. where they have like a server that you can do on-prem, or you can just send it directly to them.
Yeah, so it's the smart license.
That's a good point, Chris. Yeah, like it'll be interesting to see how that collection happens for sure.
And actually, this brings up a whole other thing, and I know we don't necessarily need to get into it on the news, but this brings back reminds me a lot of the old thing of like management networks. You had to have management networks just because you needed to collect the telemetry out of band, right? Like, so now we're going to have so much data just about the data, like riding the same
like data pipe. Yeah. The metadata network.
The metadata network. Are we gonna see a cycle back to the idea of out of band collection, like and distribution of collection?
Let's tokenize it now. We're gonna have DAD networks, and it's data about data.
I love it.
DAD networks. Go, and then you're gonna have to go ask Dad.
Go ask Dad.
I love it.
Nice. All right. Well, like I said, that was the big one. Let's toss it over. Is it you, Alex? You're going to cover the next one?
Yep, I got it. All right. So I got two pretty quick ones. One's from Forbes. We covered this 2 weeks ago in the last Fortnightly news episode, but HashiCorp was basically suing OpenTofu. There was a lot of debate on whether or not OpenTofu forked the code from HashiCorp, like right before they changed their license to BSL. And HashiCorp thought that they added a feature after the license change. So that it seemed like maybe they had forked again, like later after the license change had already happened. This is basically OpenTofu's response where, of course they're going to say, we didn't do anything wrong. We vehemently disagree that we did anything like that. And I think, Tim, you were saying this earlier. I think they're making the point that you're only going to have so many features in here, right? So eventually they're going to release something that looks similar anyway. I think that was a big part of their argument. What was weird to me is one of these articles that had the code in it. I don't pretend to know, all the intricacies of how this code is written. But when I looked at it, it looked almost the exact same. So I don't know what they were trying to show, like what was different, but to the completely untrained person, like I thought it wasn't evidence of difference. To me, it looked the exact same. So you guys got anything to add on that one?
Yeah. So Go is a static typing language, which for programming means basically like like Python is what they call duck typing, where if it looks like a duck and talks like a duck, then it is a duck. So you can infer the way you build the code or whatever kind of infers like what type of objects you're baking. But Go is statically typed, which means that you have to be very declarative. You have to say like, this is this, right? Kind of like, I think Java is like that and C is like that. I'm not a programmer, right? But my understanding that's the big difference. So OpenTofu's argument here is basically, look, we're both using Go and we're both using the same code base. Like if we built anything, it's going to end up looking like what Hashi has done. So the proof is going to be a little bit in the pudding there on like not so much the static typing or how close the code itself looks, but there'll be fingerprints somewhere. People who are better than we are hopefully can untangle that. But I do kind of understand where they're coming from, saying like, hey, it's Go, it's statically typed, it's pretty rigid. There's not that many, and we forked like a couple months ago, right? So we're basically working off the same code base. So
yeah, I think the fork was in November. So I mean, it's only not even 6 months or 6 months ago, I guess.
Yeah, I guess by now, yeah. But I mean, right. So there hasn't been that much time for divergence. So smarter people than us are going to have to figure that one out. We're just going to keep following it, but I can at least understand to some degree.
Not only that, I mean, when it was forked, just keep in mind, these are a lot of the same developers that were already writing the HashiCorp code are writing the OpenTofu code. It's not like it changed hands completely and it's new ways of thinking about it. It's the same fucking people doing it, So it's, I mean, this is all to me just the HashiCorp trying to kill OpenTofu at its root in its early days before it can kind of grow into something that they really have to compete with. And I understand why people are really questioning HashiCorp's ethics in this situation. It doesn't look great in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. All right. The next one. So this is actually a press release from Aviatrix, right? Chris and Tim both work there. But this is actually a pretty cool product announcement, basically, right? It's a Aviatrix Network Insights API. Anybody that has worked in even a single cloud will have this issue, but especially multi-cloud, right? Observability has always been a huge issue. You guys could speak to the technical details of this, obviously, way better than me. But the fact that you guys would have like a data plane throughout everywhere, being allowed to take this API and give all the information that you guys have about the different flows and visibility stuff that you guys see that you wouldn't get natively. And I think so this integrates with, it looks like Prometheus, Datadog, Grafana, and New Relic is what they're showing in the
pretty much
the
anything Prometheus based,
right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, this is a really great release, honestly. I think, like I said, I mean, observability is just huge. I don't think people realize how much observability gets missing when you start trying to do networking, especially across and between clouds. Like it just gets way out of control very, very quickly. So this is a really cool release. You guys want to add anything to this one, or?
So, I mean, obviously, elephant in the room, right? Chris and I obviously work for Aviatrix, so I'm not going to stand here and chill. Having said that, I do think that just generally, not just Aviatrix, but all of the MCN vendors need to provide customers with as much visibility as possible to
100%.
show the value of MCN, especially since the CSPs are limited in what they can expose at the hyperscaler like scale, right? To be able to, they can't give every customer like every single bit of data or they crash and burn, right? So if you're using like an Aviatrix data plane or any other vendor's, data plane or whatnot, you need to have open APIs so that those customers can come in and get that data and visualize it, in whatever visual tool that they want. So.
But yeah, I think it's cool that it allows the application owners to continue using the tools that they're very familiar with. So, like if you've met app teams that work in the cloud, they're very, comfortable using things like New Relic, things like Grafana, Datadog to monitor the health and the status of their applications. And, since we have a product that builds a network data plane, now we're just adding API, basically capabilities in where they can keep using those tools and they know the status of the network, between their, tiers and things like that. So yeah, I've had a lot of customers asking about this and I think it'll be really cool. I'm excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, that's a great point too. The tooling, right? Common tooling. I think more companies, instead of, siloing the cloud, which is what none of us want. I think kind of finding that more commonality between all the different teams is a really good thing.
Yeah, strong focus on mean time to innocence as well. So, the more
Yeah.
the more
Right.
you can expose to your app teams, the more they know it's not the network, the less likely they are to come to you and say that it is. So, hopefully that helps in that regard as well.
Yeah, I mean, and if it is, you can hopefully get ahead of it and then fix an incident before it happens, right? So that's the idea. So NetOps teams will appreciate this for the same reasons.
Awesome. All right, Tim, you want to take the next one?
Yeah, no worries. So we have an article here from IT Wire, and it's from Akamai. So Akamai is now adding a bunch of the new NVIDIA GPUs to its offer. And just basically anywhere you would use GPUs within a CDN, they're going to have it available. So this is not a very, I would say not a hugely in-depth technical article. I mean, they actually go quite in-depth on literally what you can do with the GPUs, which is, media transcoding, Gen AI, like think of like CDN style stuff where you can deliver from the edge essentially. And all of that is being available through Akamai now. But there's not a lot of depth to the article. It's just Akamai saying like, hey, we've got all of these NVIDIA GPUs and they're going to be available to you, to customers to utilize for all their kind of edge CDN applications.
Yeah, I mean, this is an AI-enabled CDN, right? Like this is basically just stuff more AI into things, and now it's in your CDN as well, which no one should be surprised by. But it does allow for some cool things that I think might not have been seen before. companies that aren't doing CDNs. So.
Okay. And then the second article I have is this one's kind of goofy, actually. It's from a website called whattech.com. I don't know how you would pronounce it. WHATECH. So I guess Wattech, just like what and then tech. So it's a market research article, if you will, about MCN, about multi-cloud networking. It specifically says Intelligent Cloud Network Platform Market Survey Report, along with statistics. And this is the weirdest part of the article. It includes that they're including forecasts in this report out to 2032, which I am just lost on.
You heard that right. You heard that right. 2032.
Bold statement.
I don't know how anybody could pretend to forecast anything even a year from now, much less 8 of them, from now. So I'm lost on that idea. I'm not going to put in my data and get the report though, but we'll have it in the show notes if you want to take a look at the report and download it. But the actual article itself just, honestly, it's a little high level because they want you to, to obviously to invest your data and get the report itself. But what I found specifically interesting about this article was it mentioned the quote unquote leaders in multi-cloud networking, such as Cisco and Juniper and Huawei, and none of the actual VMware, and completely missing from this article were any of the actual multi-cloud networking vendors. So I mean, that was also had us scratching our head, or at least had me scratching my head on this one. I don't know what to make of it because again, I haven't downloaded the report, but if the upfront data is to be understood, it seems a little tone deaf, or maybe not tone deaf is the wrong word, just a little out of touch perhaps. So I think, but yeah, anyway, so go ahead and take a look at the article and see what you guys think. I don't know. Do you guys have any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I do. I mean, first of all, I just realized that it says VMware, right? And it's like, when was this written? Because VMware doesn't exist anymore. It's
right. VMware by Broadcom.
I guess,
by Broadcom, yeah.
Yeah. But the only thing I'm going to say as a counterpoint here is they're not specifically talking about MCN. They're saying it's everything. It's like IoT. It's like verticals such as healthcare, manufacturing, smart cities, right? It's like holistic, like network platform with intelligence on it. But that includes cloud and MCN companies as well. So Tim, yes, like why does it only say these companies that everyone knows and not startups that are doing stuff in this area or other more well-known companies in here, right? Let alone the whole 2032 thing. Who the hell knows what's happening in 8 years? I mean, Tim might be retired in 8 years, right?
I hope to be.
God, I hope so.
Oh man, it's just like this whole article is just complicated.
It's funny, but like you said, Alex, they call out that this is the global intelligent cloud network platform market is segmented into software-defined networking and cloud networking. Those are the two buckets they're putting these classifications in. And hey, you know what? Maybe what they're saying is that they're forecasting out 8 years. Maybe they don't predict that any of us are going to be around in 8 years. Maybe we are going to be. We're going to shit the bed.
We've all been acquired. Yeah.
Maybe that's what they're saying. But no, it's funny. I hesitate to say that it's tone deaf because one thing I will say, working for one of these multi-cloud networking companies specifically, I will tell you one of our biggest and toughest barriers to entry is just market exposure. People knowing who we are and what we do. So maybe this is a product of that. Maybe the people that they're talking to doing this research with don't know who we are, don't know that these particular companies like Aviatrix, like Alkira, Proximo, all the people in this space actually exist in what they do. So I wonder if it's just a kind of a product of that. But like you said, I'm not putting in my data to get the full report. It does look like it's sectioned out into chapters, and there might be some good stuff in there. But maybe one of the listeners, please, would be very interested.
Yeah, I'd love to see a copy of this. And again, the people that they listed, the specific companies that they listed as the quote unquote top companies, make me think that the actual data that they're going to have in the report is probably going to be a little bit out of touch, personally.
Maybe.
And again, I wouldn't have harped on the MCN piece, except it literally says Global Intelligent Cloud Network Platform Market. So anyway, so for what that's worth.
What if your management plane is in the cloud? Does that count?
So
is it
Meraki
is that that's what I'm saying. Is that, I don't know.
Right.
It's hard to tell.
Or like Nile or like one of those, right? So yeah, totally. Okay, so yeah, that's this one. I think Chris, you're gonna close this out here, right?
Yes. So I apparently am the funny guy. I get to close out with two of the funny articles. These are both pretty comical. One is a callback to something that we talked about in an earlier episode. But before that, we have an article from the Register talking about company Stability AI, which is a Gen AI company. Apparently, they ran out of money to pay their bills for the GPUs that they're renting from AWS. I think it says something like they put in like 11 million or something, whereas they were spending like well above that. And it basically caused a lot of turmoil. Just kind of a funny article we thought they'd throw in there to kind of show the kind of cost of doing business with these AI workloads and funding these GPU things and things like that. So I don't know if you guys have any other things to add. It was just a funny one.
They should have talked to Corey Quinn about fixing their cloud bill.
Oh man.
It's rough, right? It was like they're spending $99 million, not just with AWS, but $99 million between that and GCP, and I forget what the third company was.
CoreWeave.
So yeah. So to be clear, though, when we talk about stable diffusion, or we're talking about stable diffusion. So Stability AI is stable diffusion, which is the Dolly and all of that, right? I think the graphic the ones that generate pictures and stuff. So that's a very well known product. The article specifically mentions that I guess I don't know the CEO or whatever, the owner, I'm not sure. I don't know the guy well enough to say, but he has failed to monetize. Essentially, the article's like, this person has failed to monetize the product, and so bringing in 11 million, spending like 99 million, and not able to spend 99 million, so they're out of money, and it's just so much to say about, first of all, like, okay, so we all know that AI is going to the moon, but like actually, it's actually ending up being a little tough to monetize, to that level, some of this stuff, right? So let's not all quit our day jobs just yet. And then, of course, the old saw about, running everything in the cloud can be quite expensive.
Yeah, purely speculation from me as well. I'd be curious. I don't know if they really touch on it in this article what percentage of what they're paying is related to GPU versus data transfer versus storage. Because obviously, image creation is going to be based on a large collection of images. So there's probably tons and tons of data being stored about where they're getting their source from. And it makes me wonder if this, like, not only are companies failing to monetize it appropriately, I wonder if the CSPs are actually going to come out with more fine-tuned products in those categories for like storage and transfer and things like that. I could definitely see that coming. But yeah, who knows? Hard to say.
Yeah, I mean, I got the article pulled up. So just some actual numbers, like 153 million between, that's what they were spending. 99 of that was on compute in the cloud, and then 54 million in wages and operating expenses. And they were only bringing in 11 million in sales. So, to me, this really goes to like a conversations that a lot of us have been having about AI and like, what's the use case? There's all this money being poured into it. This company was valued at $1 billion at one point. So all this money is being poured in. But how do you monetize it? Is this AI actually usable? Does it actually have a use case for?
Is there a product?
Yeah, like, and we keep seeing this stuff that, all this money was poured in, but these companies aren't able to monetize the AI products that are coming out. So I expect to see a lot more of this happening pretty quickly.
Yeah. Especially with the VC money not being as cheap anymore to get. with the interest rates and everything. Yeah, I expect the bottom to fall out a lot on a lot of these, and I think that already is happening with several of these.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, lastly, so if you recall, I think this might have been on the first episode we ever did with doing the news. It was before the news was on its own standalone episode, so it was when we was baking it into other episodes. So Alex will find the previous episode and put it into the show notes or something like that. But I remember we saw this product launch for something called Humane AI, which was a wearable AI pin that you could basically wear, and it was supposed to, do all these things to enhance your daily life. Well, we have an article from TechCrunch where, so a very famous YouTuber, Marquez Brownlee, or MKBHD, as he's often known, finally got his hands on one of these Humane AI pins and just absolutely torched it. And the article is kind of based around whether or not, bad reviews are killing companies, which is just completely asinine to me.
That's such a terrible.
It's just like one of the worst takes I've ever seen. But, the video that he put out about this product was literally called, it was like the worst product I've ever reviewed for now. And, I actually watched the video. He did I'd say a pretty honorable job at the beginning, kind of talking about the specs, the composition of the hardware and how it was, very well done, but the execution was just absolutely awful. A lot of the things that he was, who would have thought that this was either not useful or worthless in some scenarios, but definitely take a look at the article. I guess they're also kind of correlating that he did this with Fisker as well with their electric vehicles. No, dude, I think he got to the level of fame that he is at because he's good at doing this stuff. And, if he, I don't think he should have to be a shill, but they were saying that he was not acting accordingly by saying, he was distasteful by saying that, this is the worst product ever just because he has 18 million subscribers and things like that. But
I think it's weird that, and to be clear, the article we're linking, the TechCrunch article, does cover the actual wearable, but the actual article we're linking has more to do with the backlash against MKBHD for his review, and then just kind of broadly the quote unquote power that reviewers have over companies. But here's the thing, like, unless any person that's doing the review is going out of their way to nitpick every little thing, like, you can tell when somebody hates something so bad that they will just like torch something and they like scorched earth, and they have an axe to grind, as we would say, right? Like, that, and you to have take it with a grain of salt, right? I felt like he was very fair, and you know what? At the end of the day, like, if it sucks, it sucks, and what do we want? The opposite, where he'd just be called a shill, like if they give him money or something. Like, I don't know. I don't think it's the responsibility of a reviewer to protect the livelihood of people who are putting out a bad product.
No, it's not at all. I mean, it's ridiculous to think that, like, I mean, is he supposed to just, like you said, is he supposed to shill? Is he supposed to not be honest? Like, the reason he got to where he did is because he's sincere and honest about reviews. It's not because he's just selling, Humane sponsored this, so let me say they're an awesome product. Like, if your product sucks, it sucks. Don't release a beta product. Like, that's what a lot of if you watch the video and you look at the comments on YouTube, a lot of people are saying the same thing. It's like, if this is a product that's in beta and it costs $700 and a monthly subscription, why?
Get a focus group or something, man. Get a focus group. Don't sell the shit.
It's just crazy. You can't blame reviewers. That's just such a terrible take. I mean, I don't. Yeah.
I think the immediate call out was the clickbait title that he put. This is the worst product I've ever reviewed.
Yeah.
Which
it's YouTube, dude. Like, there are so many rules.
Right.
Like, if you want to stand out on YouTube, and this is, and we could go into a whole thing about social media because we ourselves get into this crap. But oh my God, you simply have to play that game to exist in social media, and it is what it is. And you can hate it up, down, and sideways, but if you want to exist on a social media platform and get any kind of engagement, like, for good, bad, or ugly. That's how it is.
I treat it like a credit score band. Like, you don't want to have to be involved. You could very much not want to be involved, but you have to play the game. Like, you have to do the dumb shit that you don't necessarily agree with at times, or not necessarily agree with, maybe just want to do in general. Eventually you might get somewhere. So,
I mean, watch the video, because it's like, I mean, he goes into so much
detail. Very fair.
He goes into like, oh, it's heating up because of the fabric that I'm wearing. Like,
right.
Every little detail he's talking about, and there's something wrong with every detail. What is he supposed to say? What conclusion is he supposed to come to? Like, I
like the one where he's like, he's outside. He's like, if there's any light whatsoever, this projector doesn't work, which anybody should have been able to figure out. Like the people that created the thing should have been like, what happens if the sun is out with our laser projector?
No, there's no sun.
Anyway.
All right. Yeah, with that, let's wrap it up. So thanks, everyone, for listening. This has been another installment of the Cables to Clouds Fortnightly news podcast. That's becoming a very big mouthful to say. It's probably easier to talk about the actual Fortnite.
Oh.
We got to squeeze it in. But yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for listening. If you have any feedback on the show whatsoever, we'd love to hear from you. So please reach out to us on any social platform that we're on at Cables to Clouds or cablesclouds@gmail.com. Please join the It's All About the Journey Discord. Get involved with the community. We are very active in there. We'd love to see more people join and getting involved. So with that, we'll wrap it up. And thanks a lot for your time. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Yep.
Hi everyone, it's Chris, and this has been the Cables to Clouds podcast. Thanks for tuning in today. If you enjoyed our show, please subscribe to us in your favorite podcatcher, as well as subscribe and turn on notifications for our YouTube channel to be notified of all our new episodes. Follow us on socials at Cables to Clouds. You can also visit our website for all of the show notes at cablestoclouds.com. Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.